Hello everyone and welcome to a special edition of Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. I'm Barry Wilkinson. We're at the home of cricket in the Caribbean. We're at Kensington Oval, where the West Indies and England, of course, are playing all now in the third test match for the Wisden Trophy. Well, we're not going to focus too much on this test match, but there's some aspects to the West Indies and England series that we're going to discuss on today's program. We have one of the best guests, in my opinion, that has played against England, and I'm talking about Collis King. He is our special man on the program. We're also going to hear from some English journalists who have been coming here since 1984 and get their perspective on how things have changed with the series gone by with West Indies and England, and also how things have changed here at Kensington Oval in their perspective. Massey United Insurance's Line and Length resumes when we come back.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
I think cricket for West Indies is hard work. That's why you need the best shoes.
Bowling fast is harder than it looks. And don't forget batting, I can do that too.
You need to have the best equipment to achieve optimum results.
Being in the center, all eyes are on me. Gotta look my best.
For over 3 decades, Sports and Games Barbados Limited has been outfitting professional, amateur and young athletes with the best gear. Whatever your sporting needs, you are sure to meet them there. Corner of James and Roebuck Street.
Sports and Games, we are the home of champions.
So welcome back to Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. As promised, a great pleasure to talk to someone who used to, I don't want to say destroy, that's a bad word, but someone who the England bowlers used to fear. Collis King, the Black Cat. Collis, it's so good to see you here at Kensington Oval. As you look around, we're going to talk about a number of things. The first thing I want to ask you though, when you played in the 70s, how much would you say the Oval has changed? Does it still have the aura? Like it did before? Of course, it's changed physically, but does it still have the aura?
I think the aura is there right now, right? But it's got bigger. But I think the aura still comes from the Kensington stand because in the early days, all the vibes used to come from the Kensington stand. But things do change. But I suppose the Bajan spectator wouldn't change. Yeah,
that's very true, Collis. You look at the fact that the crowd is going to be a very big one, pro-English. Do you think that when the West Indies, in your day, when you would have played, that would have never have happened? But do you think that psychologically that has an impact on how the West Indies feel when they're playing against England in the Caribbean to see that the spectatorship is pro-England?
I don't think it should have a negative effect on our players because your foremost thing is to go out there and play cricket. Despite the fact that we might be outnumbered, by the English, right? Your thing is to play the cricket, and I think that's what the West Indies boys should focus on.
Now, I don't know if you've seen any of the matches so far. I know you're always in the air, traveling, touring, and also coaching. When you look at this West Indies team, what do you think most definitely needs to be done with this side to try and at least put it on the path to become world class?
I think we're not batting long enough. We bat in phases, and when we if we had only batted until just after lunch, till an hour after lunch, we would have saved the test match. But they're definitely not batting long enough to save games. If you make 300 on the first day, you should lose.
You look at the West Indies bowling, it's probably perhaps the weakest it has ever been. Are we developing fast bowlers like in your day and Sir Clive Lloyd's day?
I don't think the guys nowadays doing enough with the ball. If you're bowling at 70 miles an hour, you have to do something with the ball. You have to either swing it through the air or you got to do it off the pitch, right? And that's what I'm not seeing at the moment. You need to spend time on yourself, preparing yourself, right? A coach can coach you till the cows come home, but you got to put in that extra work.
Now, overall, you look at West Indies and England duels. Tell me about some of the duels that you would have had as a top West Indies batsman with England?
Well, you know, as Colin is saying, when we play against England, it's always going to be a big thing. West Indies versus England, and in the 70s, I played here against them and I made 60 with Nolan Clark, and then they came back and I made 70 odd, and then in 79 I made 79, and it's always a great rivalry between England and the West Indies, so it should be nothing different tomorrow.
Now, the pitch at Kensington Oval traditionally has been one that has favoured fast bowling, but in the years it has changed to perhaps more of a batsman's paradise. Are pitches in the Caribbean now not balanced enough for Test cricket?
I don't know, it all depends on how much preparation you put in the wicket, right? And I think here at Barbados we should leave on some more grass, which hasn't been done, because as you know, this wicket used to be one of the fastest in the Caribbean. Now it's too placid.
Now, generally, when you played, did you prefer to play in England, or was it something about playing in the West Indies? Because your record in England is excellent.
No, it doesn't matter, right? I play what I see. You know, I don't care how fast you are or how good you can bowl. If you bowl me your first ball, I think it should be put away, I put it away. You know, that's something, what the West Indies now have to do is start hitting the ball again. We've stopped hitting the ball, so maybe that's our demise.
Who are some of the cricketers that you see now that you are impressed with?
Well, I guess Bravo would be one, but at the moment you get in 60 and then you're not carrying on, and then, you know, that's the downfall of those guys. You know, the Laras and them fellas, they have to get 60 to make 160. That's right. They get 260. You know, we're not batting long enough, as I say, and I think that's the key. You
think Shivnarine Chandapal at age 40 has seen enough, or would you be prepared to give him a couple more years?
I don't know. The selectors will be able to tell you that, but I think tomorrow, if he plays, I think he's going to have to be on his bonnet, and I think he might get a good score.
Now, we've had a sad situation with Sunil Narine being called for chucking, and unfortunately his career seems to be at the crossroads. You've seen Narine. Do you really think he chucks? I think the one that comes through the back of the arm is a bit suspect. But they stopped him from bowling his off spinner, right, which is his normal ball. Right. Well, that's like stopping you from playing the cover drive. Well, no, you can't stop from playing the cover drive for sure. But I feel very sorry for Sunil, you know. But I hope he can get things back on track. He's still a young man, and if he can rectify his bowling action, then you know, he can get back on the ball. Right. Well, look, always great to catch up with Collis King. He's still, in my books, perhaps one of the blasters of the 70s and early 80s. And he's with us on Mass United Insurance's Line and Length.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
Playing cricket for West Indies is hard work. That's why you need the best shoes.
Bowling fast is harder than it looks. And don't forget batting, I can do that too.
You need to have the best equipment to achieve optimum results.
Being in the center, all eyes are on me. Gotta look my best.
For over 3 decades, Sports and Games Barbados Limited has been outfitting professional, amateur and young athletes with the best gear. Whatever your sporting needs, you are sure to meet them there. Corner of James and Roebuck Street.
Sports and Games, we are the home of champions.
And welcome back to Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. And joining me is Steve Brinkley from The Independent. Stephen, you've been in the Caribbean many times, covered English cricket for eons now. The state of English cricket at the moment?
Difficult to say absolutely precisely. Unhealthy one moment. Looks healthy now, doesn't it? That one spell of bowling and fielding by James Anderson in Grenada last week made everything in the garden almost rosy again. It meant that England, rather than coming into this match at Barbados at 0-0, were 1-0 up in the series. Makes you feel good. But don't forget that England had a horrendous World Cup. just finished in Australia. Didn't even qualify for the quarter-final stages, which was the least that could have been expected. So their one-day ranking is poor, their 2020 ranking is poor, but at Test cricket they can still compete. But the proof of the pudding for England is going to be later in the summer when they play at home New Zealand, followed of course by their old enemy Australia. With due respect to the West Indies, England came here expecting to and being expected to win, and that, as we stand here in Barbados, looks likely to happen.
Okay, if we talk about New Zealand and Australia coming, the Aussies, in fact, Steve Smith and Shane Watson have said there is absolutely no chance England could beat Australia in the Ashes. I think it's a bit of an arrogant statement at this stage, but your thoughts on their comments?
Australians being arrogant? Oh, come. Yeah, look, they can say what they want, and on paper, at this moment, having beaten England 5-0 in Australia a winter ago, then they are clear and obvious favourites to beat England in England this time. But Mr. Smith and Mr. Watson ought to beware as well, because they haven't beaten England in England since 2001. England have won 3 successive home Ashes series against Australia. That will be at the back of Australia's minds, or ought to be. It will be at the forefront of England's when they compete at Cardiff in July for the first of 5 Test matches. England are, of course, as I said, second favourites in that Ashes series, but if they can find a bowler, a magical bowler from somewhere, and find an easier way of taking 20 Australian wickets, they can win, and anyway, I think they can compete with Australia in that home series. They've got a batting lineup at the moment which is vaunted.
Let's talk a bit about that batting lineup, and then let's juxtapose that with the whole issue of Kevin Peterson. The batting lineup looked pretty good here in the Caribbean, but against a much better Aussie bowling attack, Kevin Peterson, any chance of breaking into that top 6?
None. There is perhaps an opening at the top of the order where Jonathan Trott hasn't made the most.
He's not really an opener.
No, he isn't. He's a manufactured opener. Hasn't made the most of his comeback, so they may have to look at that position. Cook, the captain, seems to have re-cemented his position quite rightly. He's made 5 50s in 8 innings coming into this match at Barbados. It's the 3-4-5 that looks unbreakable into at the moment for England. That is Gary Ballance at 3, the quickest to 1,000 runs bar 2 players in history. At number 4, Ian Bell. Well, he's made 8,000 test runs, averages 40 odd. You're not going to omit him. And at number 5, Joe Root, who's made 2,000 runs in Test cricket, quicker than anybody else, apart from 2 Yorkshiremen, I think. Root is in great form. Balance looks solid. Bell is a player for the ages. It would be difficult even for a player like Peterson, who's in his mid-30s now, hasn't played long-form cricket for a long, long time, to break into that. There isn't a position at 6, really, where England like the look of Moeen Ali and see him as the spinner come all-rounder. Now that's going to be difficult to justify against Australia in England, and I think Australia will come and launch themselves at Moeen, but it's impossible to see Peterson breaking back into this England side. England have moved on, and secretly, for all Peterson's protestations to the contrary, I think he's moved on as well.
Okay, let's talk a bit now about the structure and administration of English cricket. We heard today that Alex Stewart has been sent an offer letter indicating the outline of the post for the new director of cricket for the ECB. Well, not really an offer letter, a letter indicating this is what is required. So there is that. We've also had indications that Michael Vaughan has indicated his interest. Any chance of any of these well-known former players moving into that hot seat at the ECB?
There's a chance. Alex Stewart certainly has made his feelings clear that if they asked, he'd probably jump. Michael Vaughan, great former captain of England who returned the Ashes to England after 16 years back in 2005, has indicated that he would be prepared to listen. However, this is the first we've heard of what the job specification is. Alec hasn't had an offer of a job. All he's had is what is expected, the spec for the job, indeed. The search for the right man goes on now. Now, I haven't looked at the detailed specification myself yet, but I would imagine that it is expecting the man to run the England team, effectively to select it while Peter Moores coaches it. That is going to be a difficult gig for whoever gets it. I would have thought almost certainly it would be a former prominent England player, and equally almost certainly a former England captain, though that shouldn't be a specific requirement of the job. It should be the best man for it. It just so happens that in this case the best man for it may well be a former captain and very good player. A lot of those people are in media positions which are less pressurised and better remunerated. Very hard to leave.
Well, okay, and final question for you, Stephen. The whole question of T20 cricket, the shortened form of the game, England are being accused of being behind and playing catch-up in terms of the T20 blast, not the ideal scenario, and their 50-over competition. Talk a bit about that.
Well, they're being accused of being hopeless at 2020 cricket. That's because they are hopeless at 20. Guilty as charged. They played poorly in the last 2020 in Bangladesh a year ago. It is difficult to believe, reflecting now, that only 5 years ago, here on this very island, England won the World 2020 Championship, and they won against Australia going away from Australia. It was an absolutely brilliant occasion. They should have built on that and patently have failed to do so. They're a long way behind now. They desperately need to get a franchise 2020 cricket operation in place at home with maybe 8 to 10 teams. The 18 county model isn't working. It's a season long. It takes too long. It's got to be, I think, condensed into a 3 or 4 week period so as players can concentrate solely on one form of the game and get some stars in it as well. Stars put bottoms on seats. Bottoms on seats make the whole idea of the game entertaining and exciting.
That's Stephen Brinkley, and as usual, very forthright. And you're watching Massey United Insurance's Line and Lane.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
Playing cricket for West Indies is hard work. That's why you need the best shoes.
Bowling fast is harder than it looks. And don't forget batting. I can do that too.
You need to have the best equipment to achieve optimum results.
Being in the center, all eyes are on me. Gotta look my best.
For over 3 decades, Sports and Games Barbados Limited has been outfitting professional, amateur and young athletes with the best gear. Whatever your sporting needs, you are sure to meet them there. Corner of James and Roebuck Street.
Sports and Games. We are the home of champions.
And welcome back to Massey United Insurance's Line and Life. And joining me is George DeBell, the senior correspondent for ESPN Cricinfo. Now, we all read you, George, so it's good to have you on our program. Welcome to the Caribbean, and I'm sure you've enjoyed it so far.
I love it. It's my favourite tour, and I think Barbados is probably my favourite country in the world.
Right. Well, tell everybody. It's okay. Let's talk a bit now about the international stage. Sunil Narine, he's currently perhaps, even though there's so much cricket being played, the fact that he's not playing is perhaps the biggest story in international cricket at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's part of a general theme, which there seems to be a crackdown against what you might call mystery spin. And he's the latest to suffer from it. I think my personal view is it's a shame, because I think bowlers like Narine entertain. And on the very flat wickets, which we see around the world now, they've found a way to overcome batsmen. But it seems that any innovation from bowlers is cracked down on, and any innovation from batsmen is celebrated.
There's a view internationally that the BCCI/IPL appear to have too much influence on world cricket, and in fact they are controlling the cricket. As a senior correspondent for Cricinfo, how do you view that assumption?
Well, there's probably some truth in it, but I mean, the IPL I wouldn't have a problem with. It's very powerful, and it offers players a great way to make a very good living. I wouldn't begrudge them that. The issue you have in the Caribbean is that it takes place at the same time as your home test series, and that's a real challenge. West Indies players are actually pretty well paid, but some of them have made a choice to go and earn more in the IPL. I won't particularly blame them for that, but it is their choice. I mean, they could stay and represent the region, and they've chosen not to. Interesting. I mean, the Narayan thing could end up being good for West Indies in that if he's no future in the IPL, he might be a lot more prepared to play Test cricket here. I mean, I think his record as a Test bowler is very unproven, but you would think that he would certainly be in the selection shake-up, wouldn't he? And he's still allowed to bowl in international cricket. It's just the IPL that he can't bowl in at the moment.
And that's an interesting juncture there. He's still allowed to bowl according to the ICC, which is the overall ruling body, but the BCCI has indicated he can't bowl in the IPL. Isn't that a bit of a conundrum or quandary?
Well, yes, and it's a worry for him as well, because you would think that the ICC ruling will probably follow because there's clearly some suspicion about his action. Personally, don't particularly have a problem with it, but that's a real worry for him. We've seen other bowlers struggle in the same way. Some have remodelled their actions and come back. Whether anyone's been quite as effective afterwards, I think we're yet to see. Syed Ashmal will be a real interesting one. I mean, it depends on your point of view. A lot of people would say that what the BCCI and the ICC really are doing with bowling actions is protecting the game. A lot of people would have that view, and that's a legitimate view. It's not my view, though. My view is that batting's actually become a bit easy, and cricket is more entertaining when wickets fall. But obviously, you do have to have a level somewhere. You can't just have bowlers chucking it. I think most people would agree. And maybe the regulations had become so laxly enforced that we were beginning to have a problem.
And that's a good point. If we look now to the international stage, they thought that T20 cricket has taken over the world. It probably has, to the detriment of Test cricket. But we've just had the World Cup, which was one of the biggest ever. So, in fact, when we were thinking that 50-over cricket might have died, it probably has risen again. Your thoughts on the three forms of cricket?
Well, I like all three forms. But I don't see T20 as a threat at all. I mean, I don't see any reason to be snobby about T20 cricket. T20 cricket is kind of the form of cricket we all started playing as kids, yeah? You smash the ball, you try and bowl as fast as you can. Yeah, it's all action. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think this series has been it's been quite entertaining. And it's been really well watched by spectators in the ground. There have been a lot of people there. You know, I think we had the highest attendance ever for a Test match in Antigua. So maybe we should be a bit careful about exaggerating the demise of Test cricket, but I do think we have to be really careful. And I keep saying this, but I think the pitches around the world are very, very poor, and the Caribbean, they're as bad as anywhere, and they produce this stultifying attritional cricket. And we wonder why people might not want to come and watch so much. But when you're seeing 2 and over, it becomes a battle of patience, and I don't think it should be. I would like to see much quicker pitches. I'm sure it can be done. I think the ICC should spend a lot more time looking at that rather than some of the nonsense they do spend time on. And I think that I know that people think I exaggerate this point and it's a prosaic point, but I think if you get the quality of pitches right, the entertainment will come. It's still a great game, you know. It's still a great game. And you can enjoy all three formats without having to choose. It's like enjoying your children. You don't have to choose which one you like the most, do you?
That's George DeBell, senior correspondent of ESPN Cricinfo, and you're watching Massey United Insurance's Line and Line.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
So Sir Gary Sober still pulling a big crowd at Kensington Oval, even though he's not playing. I'm going to ask this wonderful gentleman, where are you from, sir?
Nottingham, England.
Wonderful. What does it mean to you to, take a picture in front of this lovely statue?
Well, I was coming from Nottinghamshire, and Sir Gary played for Nottinghamshire, so I was very lucky to see him play. He's probably the best cricketer I've ever seen. So to me, it's an iconic experience.
Right. Can you remember any of his innings that you might have seen?
I've seen him make a few hundreds. I didn't see where he got 6 sixes, because that was when Notts were playing Glamorgan. But I've read about it, heard about it, seen it on television. But as I say, I've seen him a few times and he was a great cricketer.
Wonderful stuff. You've got your lovely family here. You want to introduce me to some of them?
Yes.
Yeah. Come forward, family. The family from Notts, or Nottingham, although he's wearing a Barbados shirt. Did you guys know of Sir Gary Sobers? I mean,
I've heard of him. I've never seen him. Never seen him.
What do you expect from this Test match? There are no Sir Garys playing, but what do you expect from this Test match?
Oh, we just want to have a lovely day out with all this beautiful weather, with fantastic crowds and all the environment around it. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And you're also Sir Gary Sobers fan as well?
Yeah, well, my next door neighbour is his driver when he comes to Nottingham. So he won't believe that, we've been here and enjoyed such great hospitality.
Is this your first time in Barbados?
Yeah.
First time in Barbados. Well, have you ever been to the West Indies before?
No.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you that you've already lost a wicket, but we hope you have a wonderful time.
Thank you very much.
So Sir Gary Sobers still pulling a crowd at Kensington Oval, even though he's not playing anymore. So that's it for this week's program. I want to thank Collis King in particular for joining us on the show, and we hope that by the time you're watching this, that the West Indies and England are involved in a very exciting battle right here at Kensington Oval. I'm Barry Wilkinson. Until next week for Mass United Insurance's Line and Length. Bye for now.